Welcome everybody. Today we're going to be going over the profit and loss statement and how that helps you make extra money. And we're going to start with a real company first. The company, of course, is Apple, Securities and Exchange Commission site. I'm going to Apple here. I'm going to go down to the annual report, 10K. Now the income statement or the profit and loss statement or the statement of operations, it's always called something different. Here with Apple, it is called Statements of Operations, I think. Yes, here we go. All right, so here we are with the Consolidated Statements of Operations. On the left here, you see it says net sales, then it says cost of sales, then operating expenses. So what is it doing here? It's taking the revenues, and then it's taking the expenses, and it's deducting the expenses from the revenues. And at the bottom, we have earnings per share here. And we can see the profitability of Apple, and that's very important. So when we're analyzing companies, we look at the income statement, we look at the balance sheet, and we look at the statement of cash flows. And those are the three big guys that we look at. But right now we're just going to focus on the income statement and how you can use this concept to make yourself more money. So what do I do with this concept with personal finance? Well, last week we went over budgeting, and we kind of looked at this concept. You may not know it, but we kind of looked at this concept. With the extra money, the residual money that you have from budgeting, what do you do with that? Well, when I was just starting out, I would take that money and then I would buy things in order to resell them. And in order to ensure that I was profiting off of it, I was tracking my profit and loss. And so when I purchased a car, I would only purchase the car if I could sell it for more money later. I posted about an S2000 that I bought in St. Louis, and I showed how it had a supercharger, coilovers, all this fancy stuff on there that I could part out, make extra revenue, and then return the car to stock and sell the car for the same price that I bought it, basically. And basically I get to keep all that extra revenue from all those parts that I sold off. And that is the idea of profit and loss. And that was one of the best things that I did. I would go out and buy these modified cars. I would part them out. With this concept, I aimed to add about $5,000 per month to my normal income. And this really helped me because I'm living in a very high cost of living area. I'm in California, and I wanted to be able to go to grad school. I wanted to be able to buy a home. And so it was very important that I was doing this on the side after work. That is the concept of profit and loss. And I still use it today. I still track all of my expenses with my cars. So these days I actually lose money on my cars, and I can afford to do that. But even with that, I am still making decisions based upon profit and loss. A good example of this is the Corvette, the C7 Corvette I purchased. I purchased that car knowing it would depreciate, but I needed a reliable car with a warranty to get through grad school, something that I didn't have to work on. All told, I lost about $5,000 on that car, and when I went to sell it, nobody wanted to buy it because it was all messed up from taking it to the racetrack, and so I ended up trading it in. But to get the most amount of revenue from trading it in, I ended up parting out the competition seats. So I sold off my competition seats to someone who wanted them for $2,000. He gave me his stock seats in the trade, and then I traded the car in, and that allowed me to get an extra $2,000 on the trade. So instead of $30,500 I got for the car, I ended up getting a total of $32,500. But the point is that I tracked everything in Excel, and I'm aware of my profit and loss. Now the Lotus was another car that I didn't do super well on. That car, after tax, I purchased it right around $20,000. But that car needed so much reconditioning and so many parts to do well that I ended up spending close to the amount that I sold it for. So in my expenses, in my Excel sheets, I tracked all the expenses with that car, and I only made $400 on that car in the end after adding in gas, insurance, and all the parts I put into that car. So that's a little disappointing, but it was a fun experience, and I was able to make videos on the car. Now the Ford Raptor, this is an example of a sheet that I'm putting together. I have the Ford Raptor, and I have my electric car that I use for commuting. So I have all of my Ford Raptor expenses here. I have my fuel expenses over here. And you'll notice on the far right, I have cost per mile. So the reason I'm doing cost per mile is that I'm comparing it to my electric car's cost per mile so that I can give you guys an answer on how much money my electric car saves me. And then over here, I have a mini Ford Raptor. I purchased a little RC electric Ford Raptor, and that was a poor decision, but I'm tracking all my expenses, and it's important to track all your expenses so that you know what goes into everything. And this was a stupid decision, obviously, but it's here. and I'm not gonna push it under the rug. So where does this money come from to do these little projects? Well, that's the point of budgeting. You get that extra money and then you start buying cars that you can flip, or whatever you guys do. It could be something entirely different. Right now, I made a video about how I was getting into the sharing economy. Now that R8, that Audi R8 that I borrowed, the convertible top was broken and I had to take it into the dealership. So when I took it into the dealership, they called back and said that the convertible frame was snapped and that the repair was going to cost $17,000. Now, when you're faced with a big expense like that, it pays to go investigate it. So I went and investigated it, and I talked to the shop foreman, and he showed me exactly where it was broken. And I said, hey, that doesn't look too bad. It looks like the top will still operate with that little piece broken.
We'll push that out.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's a part of the, I mean, I've done this manual procedure.
Right.
I've been an R8 tech since 2007.
Okay. Could you test it the way it is? If we took these, I mean, what if we took these locks off? Would you be able to see if it works?
The tip of it is just broken out, so there's still a partial hook there. That doesn't necessarily mean that it might not lock it into place, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. Yeah.
Let's see it. Yeah, let's do that. Let's try that. And so that's what they did. The top works fine, and the repair only cost $2,700. So with profit and loss, it's very good to stay on top of your revenues and your expenses. And when something big comes up, something big that's going to cause you a big loss, it's very important to pay attention to it, and it's very important to negotiate that. You always track your revenues and expenses, and if you don't track them, I guarantee you will lose money. It's very important to track them. So I'm going to share this Excel of the Ford Raptor so you can see what the expenses get up to as I build the car up, and I might lose money on it, who knows. I will share that with you in the description. And if you want to start looking at financial statements, you can go to the SEC site and do that. And I encourage you to do that, especially if you are investing and you haven't been valuing companies based upon that. It's important to see if the companies that you are investing in are profitable. And so I just went over how I have applied profit and loss and budgeting basically to my cars, and that is transportation. That's how I get to work. There's a couple other big expenses that I went over in the first video, and that is housing and food. And so in the next couple videos, I'm going to do some conceptual stuff on applying this stuff to your budget. That is all I have for you today. Thank you for watching. Make sure that you enjoy your car.